the Berlin Planning Commission meeting for June 12th, 2024. Can I get a motion to adopt this evening's agenda? Second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Approval of the minutes from March 27th, 2024 and May 15th, 2024. Does anyone have any changes or comments?
The only thing that I saw is that obviously I was represented at the meeting with Mr. Benitez, and it says Robin.
Okay. Can you, what page is it on?
Page 6, it says, Mr. Stover confirmed that Mr. Cassio and Mr. Cosby would represent the commission during the meeting.
Erickson,
What we already did.
I mean,
Nick, I can't hear what you're saying.
it's on page 6. Looks like, 11 paragraph on page 6. Page 3, I'm sorry.
Page 6, paragraph.
Page 2. What paragraph? 3. The third paragraph on page 2, the last.
So what is it you needed added there?
Just Eric's name as well, because there's 3 of them meetings. Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the remaining minutes? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We're going to have a quick change to the lineup until Rick gets here. So we're going to be skipping to item number 5, concept plan for 513 South Main Street. If you can come forward and present and let us know your name.
Patrick Borstead.
If you want to explain what you want to do and everything.
So there is an existing office there. It was a house that was converted to an accounting office. And what we're looking to do is add a building behind it. So it would be a detached building behind it. And then behind the new building would be the stormwater management facility.
Is there currently a stormwater management or is the area affected didn't require it?
It did not require it.
Okay, so you actually be adding to it.
Yes,
To accommodate everything or just the new building?
everything.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where we were working back and forth, we presented a couple of different, sketch plans to Dave, of course, the Russell Hammond, the designer, was consulting with EA as well, so they're familiar with what we're trying to do as well.
What is back there right now? I try to drive by.
It's just, there is parking behind the building as well, and then it drops off, so it's just grass.
Okay.
So the idea of tonight would be if we can get, a blessing, if you will, then we would move on to doing the soil analysis and doing the topography survey, and then start developing the stormwater management plan.
Same thing that's already there, basically, just adding 2 more offices.
Yes.
Pretty straightforward.
On top of the stormwater management as well.
Yes, so that is what our plan is, but again, once we do the calculations with regards to the perking of the soil conditions, then that'll kind of dictate what exactly we do in terms of the stormwater management feature.
But you might pave it in the future, but for now it's just gravel.
I believe the calculations, if I'm not mistaken, that, you know, they still consider gravel mostly still an impervious surface, so. Yeah, so as of right now, that would be the plan, but in the future, that could be a possibility as well.
Just make sure that's in the calculations then.
Yes, yeah.
Do you know what you want to put back there? Is it just an office building?
It's an office building, yes, and then parking as well. Yeah, I believe EA was wanting them to, you know, do it all based on the idea that.
Then what it might be,
Yes, exactly.
what it usually is.
Yeah.
Can you propose any landscaping back there around the stormwater pond behind the building? or-
Yes, and then that was another thing is that, you know, we wanted to keep that buffer to the left of the driveway or the thoroughfare as well.
So you are going to have some landscaping,
Yes.
just not shown on this plan?
No, not yet. So there's a couple other things we have to include as well.
No, we're just,
This is
No,
concept.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just concept.
We try to put a real tree in there somewhere, it'd be nice.
Yeah, that's definitely
Something that grows big and won't fall on the building someday.
I mean, the office could make some good deals by that tree, you know?
I know, it's a deal tree. People love shade trees. 100 years, they'll appreciate it.
Yeah. But yeah, we didn't want to get ahead of ourselves and start on the stormwater management before bringing it to your attention what we were proposing.
All the adjacent properties are what?
To the right and behind is B1, and to the left is a residential.
I just have one, I think it's a good project, I just have one comment. That the existing building, I go by there often pre-dawn, and it's lit up like an octogenarian's birthday cake. There's spotlights everywhere. Maybe they could go on some, and we do pay attention to lighting. So maybe we don't do that again, and if possible, maybe we can put those large lights on motion sensors or something, so they're not on constantly for the neighbors and for passersby. I think that would be a good thing.
Okay.
Thanks.
Is that parking shown, the calculated would be required parking for it as an office use?
Yes.
Yeah, my only thing there is it's even with gravel pretty close to that property line in terms of like any vegetation that could buffer the parking from the edge of the property. It just seems like a really tight condition. That's the.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Oh,
the
4 feet.
It is, yeah. It's
No,
not-
the other side.
On the side?
The other side.
Other side's like,
Oh, I see.
Yeah. It just seems
Is there
like.
anything there now?
Like the trees on lot 6, maybe, you know?
Yes, there is.
There's like a buffer of trees on the
Yes,
side.
and we could certainly add some more, and if we had to, we could also protect, we could probably even shave a little bit off.
Yeah.
That's a condition.
That's just concept.
Yeah, just backing out of that.
Yes, it would be tight.
Any comments from anyone in the audience? Name and address, please.
Jennifer Lynch, 100 Ann Drive, Berlin. I'm actually the owner of the property. I just want to address the light issue that we've had for the last 7 years. I work there by myself into 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we got permission to have those lights, and it's more of a security thing. The neighbors to the right of us, if you've ever seen that property, yeah. Have you ever seen the back of it?
no.
Yeah, you should. So that's all security for my purpose as well, because I work very late. That's why they're there.
I just suggest a motion sensor, so no matter what's happening,
If you have motion sensors between the squirrels and the bunnies, they're gonna go off all the time.
they're very adjustable these days. A lot different than what we might be used to.
Any other comments from anyone? All right. Thoughts? Bill?
Make a motion to approve.
No, there's nothing.
No, it's just about, well,
I mean, straight. Seems like in general, you got,
Okay, there you go.
talks about landscaping, and then you get the general gist of where we're at, but.
Okay, very
Yeah,
good. All right, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Not tonight. We're going to shift back to item number 4, concept plan, the Tele project, Bay in Tripoli. If you guys want to come forward, introduce yourselves and the project, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Frank Jett with GMD, engineering project.
Ryan McFree with Intel Communities.
Bob Legere with Data Community.
thanks for coming.
You guys just want to explain what you're trying to do, what you got going on, where you're at?
They've had this site for a while. I think the planning commission's probably seen 3, 4, 5, 17 different versions of it throughout the years. We finally gotten back into it, tightened it up a little bit. I think at one point there were some townhomes in there and maxing out the density and looking at a true PUD. We're going by code now, or by right with the density. I think there's 33 available in there. Of course, cramming 33 on that site with wetlands and the stormwater and the proximity and the access and everything just didn't work. So we've got it down to 26 or 27 now. Met with staff preliminarily a couple months ago. The discussion was, we originally had an access out on Tripoli. There were concerns that Tripoli just couldn't handle traffic and improvements and all of that. So we took that away. We've got the little walking trail for the families that live in here so they can go access the park and slide through that way. But the main access would be off of Bay Street and come through, be very similar to Austin Circle at that point. We've talked to the town extending water down Tripoli from, is it Kensington?
Kenwood.
Kenwood, and looping it through over to Bay. So we'll have a complete loop there and to keep things going. The sewer runs, there's a paper street between the parking lot on the north side of Tripoli and the property. There's a sewer main that runs there. We're going to tie in there and access that for the sewer. We've got enough fall to cover. Working with EA for the stormwater to get it out. It's going to drain out front towards the 113. Near that right of way, there's a good sized ditch out there that we can use. And then it goes north and under Bay.
It goes north?
Yeah. And the north property line that we have, there's a wetlands ditch in there that kind of drains off that man-made pond on the town site. So we'll replace the culvert and upsize it, so it'll continue access and drainage that way. So if the town ever gets to do anything on the park site and improve that drainage, it can go that way and not impede it.
Rick, I know you had a bunch of comments for us, like when Dave would speak up, so do you want to kind of explain what you gave to us and what you have?
And gentlemen, there was a printing issue, so get a copy. So Rick Baldwin, I've been asked by the town to serve as consultant to keep planning and zoning moving forward until a new director has been identified. So this was one of the projects that was asked to take a look at and provide some comments.
There's some extra comments up here.
Yeah.
Do they have?
I don't believe so because of the printing
There's a
problem.
couple copies here.
We have some extras that,
We have enough up here.
We're flush.
Yeah.
I'll take Chris's.
So, unlike what I heard from the back of the room, I have no, extraneous comments regarding that, since they are meeting the density as would be required. I don't know if Brent mentioned, though, that they are asking for a PUD, so we'll need to be seeing that documentation going forward. Brent also mentioned that they're working with EA, but right now, just looking at the preliminary as it's been submitted, it would not be sufficient to be able to evaluate that stormwater will be properly handled per state requirements. So I'd like to see the results of that because the possibility that a stormwater solution could affect what you're seeing for layout of this design. The only other thing I think, just going quickly, since you had covered items that are, many of these items noted here would be forward-looking as you move beyond the preliminary stage, so just giving you an earlier heads up. You've already mentioned the looping for the water. Other questions would be such things as location of trash receptacles. At this stage, it's also not clear to me whether these streets are proposed to be public or private. I've heard both. I have not weighed in one way or the other, waiting to see what the intent is.
To that point, I think we kind of landed on being private.
Yeah, I think in general,
That's
Berlin,
down
basically, yeah, Berlin's moved all for is private, better.
Yeah.
Discussion of stuff.
Then I would strongly suggest that the town look for what are the future plans for maintenance of those private streets in the PUD documents, as that's going to be your opportunity to look out for the well-being of future residents of that area.
You mentioned PUD twice. I think you said no.
So originally it was a PUD.
Uh-huh.
We can do this by right without going through the PUD process. So I think at that point, I think we can do it.
I'll comment on the submittal.
Yeah.
And I called you earlier this month to say, did you have any changes? So I'm going by what we have in writing at this point in time.
Do you mind, I'm a little ignorant towards that. Can you explain the difference?
So the PUD process is, you have an allowable density. If you want to do something different that's outside the allowable zoning, so at R2 or R3, whatever it is in,
R2.
It's a minimum of 8,000 square foot lot. If we've got 8,000 square foot lots and we've laid them out as such with this, it's by code. You don't have to go to the PUD.
Okay.
The old PUD was, I think they had some townhomes, which isn't allowable in the R2. And it's maximizing the density out. So in a PUD, I think you can get 60 units in here on this site, which you can compact the sticks a little bit, but it's going to require more parking. Then you go through the PUD process and you guys have a little more say in what the play is and setbacks. You're kind of setting your own rules for the site. It's not just straightforward. So I think we can kind of alter the PUD thought process to just a straightforward subdivision per code.
Like as a developer, do you normally, if you can, like let's just say you had the choice and you meet all the requirements, you would not want to do the PUD process if you.
Correct.
Is it just costly or is it like?
It honestly speaking.
Nobody would want to do the flood process.
Right.
I did it.
Basically,
That bad?
it creates ill will
Okay,
because it's not by code.
got
A
it.
lot of people have gone through and spent a lot of time on their master plan and zoning codes to make sure that R2 is in the right place.
Mhm.
And then you're taking what that work's been done in the past 10, 15 years and blowing it out of water.
And can the town say no to a?
They can.
They can, okay.
Yeah, so it's not a guarantee.
Right.
It creates ill will. It's not necessarily the right spot for the density all the time.
Yeah.
You know, this corridor through here doesn't need 60 townhomes sitting right on 133.
Okay.
So on this page,
Go ahead,
says,
sorry, Ron.
so on this page says you're going from R2, that's where it says R2, proposed planning and development. Typical dimensions, 6,900 square feet. I think R2 minimum is 10,000 square feet, am I correct?
I think it's 8. I think we have some leftover too.
But it's basically what, 0.15 acres per lot, that's roughly what you're doing each one. And are these spaces in the corner, are these recreational green spaces we're looking at? Is that gonna be any like?
Forest conservation.
Okay, so is that gonna be forestry or is it gonna be mowed grass?
Forest.
Okay.
Yeah. So there'll be a visual buffer
Okay.
to them.
Rick, one of the additional things that we're asking for is compliance to, I'll get you the section number here, 108-275 and 108-274 in the code. It's also written in the package that you have. That would be protection of the greenway along Route 50. That section of the code enables the town to be looking at landscape and aesthetics up to 500 feet back from the right-of-way, which would completely encompass your property. Primary interest would be screening along SHA Route 50 that's fairly dense.
113.
Oh, excuse me, 113. okay.
Salisbury guy.
Yeah, you gotta forgive me.
He's not calling it a city.
So, it really shouldn't necessarily affect what you've done so far, but it does change what you'll show for landscaping. And would ask that it be in accordance with SHA's environmental design for greenways.
Okay.
The available document. As I was going through based on what was provided, which is really what is shown up there, if I remember correctly, that is showing 6,000 square foot lots, and that would require you to go to PUD. So if you're going back to 8,000, I don't think that that's what's shown on the drawing, at least that's the way it was submitted for us to understand.
So can you speak to them, what is it? Are you asking for 6,000 or 8,000?
Well, recommendation at this point with these changes for stormwater, lot size, PUD, everything that's been discussed as being a change, would advise you all consider the request would be to revise and resubmit the preliminary plan, more accurately reflecting stormwater.
Really, if we're sitting here with 6,000 square foot lots, and you want to go by right, we're kind of wasting our time, aren't we?
There are two other things that I think might become areas of concern in looking at this. I have no idea if it isn't a concern or not, but it would be questioned. Is the proximity to the Route 113 intersection. I don't know if that meets the state's setback's not the right word, but the distance requirement. That would be a state highway call. I know that the fire company would have questions regarding turn radiuses, particularly if they were parking on corners. If it's a private street, it doesn't impact our trash trucks or plows, but the fire company, obviously, private or public, that's a concern.
So it's really hard to see, but we do have some parking, parallel parking on the interior of the loop around the pond to get them off the pavement proper.
As Chief Downing is fond of saying, that you can restrict parking all you like, the people are still going to park there. But that's the kind of issue you can't necessarily predict, but you have to start from a place that works,
Yeah.
so.
And Brett is making the assumption that you would provide 2 parking spaces on each building site.
Yeah.
And it's not in the write-up, but it would be coming forward. The pedestrian path, the trail that you have between the subdivision and the park, the request coming forward would be to consider constructing that as a 10-foot wide shared use path compliant with federal regulations for pedestrians and bicycles.
So I think what we were throwing out there was a minimum of 6,900 square feet, which we very easily could get to 7,000. But R2 minimum is 8,000, so it would be a HUD, but feel very similar to by right instead of the density. We're just asking for a variance on the lot size.
So how big what's the average size of these lots?
The minimum is 6,900. The ones in the corners, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Nearly half of them are pushing 9,000 or 10,000 square feet.
And there's marked building envelopes, is that just designates the setbacks of the yellow building envelope?
Yeah, correct.
And will there be driveways?
Yes.
Okay, so you will have off-street parking?
Yes. And I can't guarantee it because I don't know if we have a builder yet, but I almost guarantee that there's going to be garages. Yes.
And
It's hard to sell it out.
what's your market, like what size houses are you looking at?
About 2,400.
Somewhere between 2,400 to 2,800.
What's the price?
That's market driven, it's hard to tell now.
What do you think? You gotta have a number.
When are we
What is it?
building it?
Yeah, exactly. It'd be a lot different in 6 or 8 months.
250 square foot.
I mean, what do you think? Today's market, what do you think?
For place of Berlin.
Yeah.
I don't know. can't afford it.
Six.
That's,
I mean, it's
that's
gonna happen, it's gonna happen.
I'd say,
Five to six?
That's how
Maybe
we
six,
do
that's
this.
it.
500 to 600?
with the garage, attached garage.
Yeah, yes, attached.
Where are you gonna put a detached garage?
Huh?
Where are you gonna put a detached garage?
Well, I'm asking questions as to where things are going.
Yeah, they'll be front loaded, most likely roll curves, and you can choose left or right.
So they won't be designated.
I don't think the plan right now is to designate, depending on if the builder comes in before we get final approval, we might be able to.
When we're looking at
Say
site,
that,
when we're looking at site plan, we will require to be able to see where the easements are, where the meters are located, because we do not want a water meter in a driveway.
Then you're looking to flip it to a national or something.
Possibly, yes.
Possibly.
This isn't that niche spot of potentially too small for them, potentially,
Yeah, it could be.
so.
I mean, like DR, who just built the townhomes by me? They did-
DR.
DR did 33, you know, small project for them.
Yeah,
I
that's
was shocked they took that
about,
on.
that's about on the bottom.
Yeah, I
end of
mean, they're
what they
townhomes
do.
too, I was shocked.
No garage there?
Definitely when you guys get, you know, if this moves forward and everything, design standards, I know there's gonna be a fight from people in the town and us to get something that's not just vinyl siding, mass-produced house on there. I mean, I think this went back to 2009, the last time that I found the red, and that was the same comments there, was something unique. I think Pete had made references not being exactly like Decatur Farms, something different. Something
Trader
that's-
Farm is somewhat disappointing to me. We're
Yeah.
trying to get more
Somewhat.
architectural interest over there.
I think that's your exact words.
I'm trying to be nice. You know, nice to see some views here and there. It'll be you'll have a declaration with an association running the show here. To do your roads and to make the road regulations, have a board of directors, all that kind of stuff, the usual stuff.
Correct.
So, you know, we're going to be very interested in the elevations for what you're building. You have architectural control, architectural committee within, have standards for architecture.
Absolutely.
All right.
So will you be flipping this, or will you be hiring a builder to do your work?
So we most likely would sell the improved lots to a builder.
Okay.
Rick did that highway corridor thing, you know, obviously, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lots kind of backing up to that highway corridor where currently exists a, you know, undeveloped lot with vegetation on it. And obviously, that's part of our initiative, not to step on, needs to commented on this for proposals for this property in the past, but you know, there's not much space left there. I know you're not showing any landscaping on it currently, but that's a lot of houses that are backed up, and usually, you know, you get floodlights on the backs of houses as well, you know, letting back decks, and, you know, so we absolutely need to see something that, you know, would buffer that highway corridor there.
Not only that, but I think we ought to be buffering Tripoli Street too.
Yeah, in the park.
You don't want the park to be leaning in a bunch of walls for houses.
Back walls.
Yeah.
And also over towards the nature farm we have, we really want to maintain a tree thing going on there, so you feel like you're in the woods instead of looking at the back of a house. So buffering around this project is very important.
Okay. And we do have room provided with the forestation banks in the corners, but we could definitely run lines. Something a little better than just wetlands.
Yeah.
No leaves.
Real trees, like local.
That's why,
No
vegetables.
leaves.
that's why we're pointing you to the SHA standard. They do have a plan schedule in there.
Presently, there's a row of eastern red cedars on the eastern portion of the site. Are they going to be impacted by? Mr. Dombeck, I think, planted those a long time ago, and I tell you, he was a great guy to deal with. Really, he really was. So hats off to Dave, great guy. And I do believe we requested this, and he put it in early, which is really good for you guys, because he's looking pretty good right now. Well, will they be impacted?
I don't know. I'll look and see if we can-
I would hope that they would not be,
Okay.
because it's a pretty well-established green wall.
It runs parallel to the,
Yeah.
yeah.
They were put in,
That's called smack dab.
well, we'll see where they are, but they're well-established. They'll just hold on to them.
Brent, did you mention the wetlands that are on site?
Yeah, we've had them located. We're trying to stay within the 5,000 that we can disturb.
Where are they?
They're
There's-
shown in the package that you have, where DNR is designated, that has designated them as in your package.
These shapes with dotted line shapes.
That's not.
If you look at
Okay,
it,
got it.
Sarah,
Right,
Mr.
right.
Richter.
In the dotted line, right, got it.
There's a chance that the flags are still out there.
So that one runs from center to west, I guess, all the way off the property line to towards the park.
well, the other way you can see them, if you look on Google Earth, you can see where the farmer has put the underlays.
Right.
I mean, I would tell you guys that I think, if done correctly, I could see a path forward that would make sense with this. I don't know if it then gets cost prohibitive for the things we want to see in this project, but I could see this making sense. Before I ask the audience, I do have 2 letters from people in town that I told I would read. I think, you're going to get, obviously, people are much more apt to say negative than positives.
Especially on a keyboard.
Yeah, it's like a 10-to-1 ratio, maybe 100-to-1. I always try and recommend, getting comments from either Ivy Wells or someone in the restaurant or downtown industry to talk about what an impact of 37, 40 homes would be year-round. Just families, just try and help offset, because once again, negatives are, so much more. So I'm going to read 2 letters real quick. The first one is from Tony League on Bay Street. Hello, gentlemen. I am writing to oppose the creation of a development on Tripoli, the Natelli project. There are numerous reasons why, from stormwater to access only on Bay Street and everything in between. The town should purchase that land and use it to manage storm watershed for this area of town and keep it green space. Every single rain we have floods my land for numerous reasons. We do not need 27 new reasons constructed behind us. This town also has no planning director or a plan, and until we have a plan, we should not have a new development such as this that would take any key pieces of undeveloped land and just plop something on it. There isn't a single neighbor of mine on Bay Street who disagrees with the sentiment. Thank you for reading this into the record. And then I have a letter from Blair Parsons on Kenwood Court. It's a little bit longer. I am writing regarding the proposed Natelli development on Bay and Tripoli Streets. In addition to the obvious concerns of stormwater management issues, increased traffic on an already busy street, and other impacts of growth, I have serious concerns about what a neighborhood of this style would mean for the future of Berlin. I am aware that this parcel of land has been proposed for development in the past, I believe around 2009, and it was discussed among the commission members that no one wanted to see the mistakes of past developments in town repeat themselves. My fear with the current proposal is that we find ourselves in the same place again, looking at another cookie-cutter development that would not only repeat the mistakes of the past, but would open the gates to future development in Berlin of the same nature. One only needs to take a drive into eastern Sussex County to see what happens when developers who have little concern or care for an area are allowed to develop it to make the highest profits. Instead of the individual homes of character seen all over Berlin, one of the main entry points of town will be framed by almost 30 nearly identical homes built as close to each other as possible. While Natelli's communities in Sussex County are in many cases more nicely landscaped and laid out than other developments in the area, they still feature the same formula for maximizing profits: cookie-cutter houses built quickly and cheaply and in the same style with only minor variations from home to home. Is this the look we want for historic Berlin? I only hope that the commission gives its decision as much weight as they have other projects in town. One convenience store or one hotel will be nothing compared to almost 30 identical houses and the domino effect it will have on future developments. I would hate to see some of the most vulnerable properties in Berlin, especially the Abbott Farm and the few other open spaces we have left, turn into just another overdeveloped beach adjacent town. There is no doubt that Berlin is an incredibly desirable place to live, and we need more inventory in the housing market. but a smaller development of 3/4 to 1 acre custom home lots would surely be more suited to the town style and vision. It would allow for additions to the tax base without sacrificing the carefully curated, historic, and unique vision you have all worked so hard to preserve. Thank you for your time and consideration.
He's not gonna be a customer, is he?
Everyone's entitled to their opinion.
I mean, I think it's the same concern everyone has, guys, that, I think we can all pound our head against any developments ever, but if the development's coming, we want to see something that's just a little different, with proper protection of the tree lines, which obviously we're harping at excessively. I can understand that if I lived on neighboring areas, I wouldn't exactly want a brand-new development in my eyesight, but also that is what happens when you live in town. Developments happen,
Yeah. It's called infill. That's the word we throw around here that we ask for all the time. This is it. This is what we ask for. You can do acre lots, be $1 million, 1.2, lot of package.
Yeah.
Oh, but wait, 1.4.
Anyone else up here have any comments?
I'm just concerned about the Bay Street entrance. It's pretty busy. I don't know with the stacking. I don't think I have to worry about stacking there, but it's pretty busy. Why not Tripoli? Why did you get rid of Tripoli? You had Tripoli and a couple other iterations.
The width of the pavement condition out there,
Uh-huh.
it couldn't handle the traffic. It's 19, 20 feet edge paved to edge paved now.
When they came and met with staff, that was one of the items that I specifically mentioned, was that if Tripoli Street were considered, significant improvements would have to be part of that. And I don't know that the space or the economics exist to incorporate that.
If you want all that traffic from the Park Road though, Will?
Yeah, that was. one of the-
I'd rather Bay Street.
I'm just thinking about Bay Street, you know.
I mean, I guess is Bay Street that busy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
At certain times of day, it's
intersection.
Yeah.
I don't come across Bay Street.
I cross it every
Travel
day at
often.
8:15, take my kid to school. It's busy.
Yeah.
That's that.
Is Bay Street that busy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
At certain times of day, it's
intersection.
Yeah.
I don't come across Bay Street.
I cross it
Travel
every day at
often.
8:15, take my kid to school. It's busy.
Yeah.
That's that.
Jamming.
Coming into town, flying down.
Flying down there sometimes. Yeah.
If that's a serious concern, the action the commission might want to consider is requesting a traffic study and involving SHA since they have an immediately adjacent intersection.
Yeah, I think you need to get SHA comments before we get too far.
Is that a state road?
Bay Street?
Bay Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an intersection of two state roads.
Any comments, guys?
Have you talked to the neighbors? You haven't gotten to the neighbors yet, right?
Really wanted to throw it out there, see where everything's good.
It
Yeah,
helps.
I mean, I get it, before we start dumping.
I haven't talked to Tony yet. So,
I mean, the people along that entrance certainly are going to have a concern. You want to try to alleviate.
Yeah, and it was, the couple of times that we've had discussions with the town, it was, look at Austin Circle and use it as kind of the basis, and that's what we were trying to base things off of.
You guys have fence lines, right, that go in there?
And that's,
Right.
I
Again, nothing's perfect.
can't get access out of the back, I can't get it off the front, and Tripoli just putting that much traffic on a street with a huge park on it.
I agree.
I get all that. You can't-
Lesser of evils.
You can't go north immediately, you gotta go south before you go north and you highway, get all that, but think about what the impacts on Bay Street might be.
Didn't Walnut Hill somewhat of something would be a good model for this?
That was the secondary one as well.
That was
After Austin Acres?
Well, I just think that Walnut Hill is a pattern. Lots is, they're really
Less than 8,000 is PUD.
they're less than 8,000. I mean, and the architecture there is carefully controlled, so you got interesting houses and you got an interesting neighborhood. I think it's something to seriously consider when you develop this.
Pretty high property values.
Yeah.
There's a reason why.
Yeah. And you got a big park space.
And I'm assuming there was no interest from the town to try and buy this for parking. I'm sure that's been thrown out.
Once upon a time,
Well, I mean, you have to remember.
The town blew it.
3 years ago,
Yeah.
That's what they did, they blew it.
there was a thought.
Thanks for the
process.
offer, though. Very much appreciated.
And then the focus kind of went towards
Got it.
the other park.
I mean, maybe if we're trying to find a balance between infill development and affordable housing, well, maybe this isn't an affordable housing neighborhood here. This just is not an affordable housing
Not-
opportunity.
Not what people are talking about.
And so to make it palatable to people, maybe it has to go higher end to make it work. You know, bigger lots.
Higher end, more.
Bigger lots.
Let's not do that.
I'm just throwing out thoughts.
It's not up to us to determine affordability of the relative term.
Well, I understand, but I'm talking about making a project that is infill and somewhat protects the neighbors with perhaps less density. But I'm just throwing out thoughts, It's what other people are thinking. so I'm
Did you all ever think of anything like bigger estate lots or anything like that, or kick that around ever? No.
Site work too expensive.
I'm not sure the economics of it made sense.
Understood.
With all the infrastructure, you're not
I
gonna.
mean, 27 homes doesn't seem like an extreme amount, and I get it's a smaller area, but it's not like, it's spaced out, it's,
We had
you had,
37,
Right.
36 for the last iteration
Mhm.
with some cul-de-sacs, and
Yeah.
there was a lot of heartburn over that.
I mean, we like this better than townhomes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys ever seen, I think, what they call pocket neighborhood? Come on,
Pocket?
pocket neighborhoods, it's,
Sells good books.
smaller homes, more affordable. Density would be, much more than this. Google it once, Google pocket neighborhoods. I think it.
I don't think that's what we're looking for.
I
don't think it is.
But you guys do good work, and it's something that I think you should look at, because it addresses a demographic that no one's addressing right now. Where people are screaming for affordable, the demographics have changed. And it's really interesting, and where they're doing it, it sells like hotcakes.
It's a balance. What you're getting at is like homes of this size tend to go to the model vinyl home, vinyl clad, whereas you can build a smaller house of much higher quality.
Much more detail.
For a demographic that doesn't need 2,400 to 2,800 square feet, which we need to be providing housing for both the economy of town.
I mean, but on this project, we'd be then trying to cram more density, causing more problems.
Not necessarily.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that.
You don't think it'd be more density?
I think it would be more density, yeah, but if you have less, you have about the same amount of people, because you would have less people in the smaller homes. That's the way. That's
I mean, homes I go to where it's 2 people in a 4,000 square foot home, I don't know if that's true. I think those days are long gone about how many people in a large home.
Dude.
Your generation seems to get bigger and bigger homes every 2 weeks.
Yeah, my generation goes to downsize.
Yeah, but they're not.
I know, I have it all the time.
Well, the problem with offering for a single 20-something, 30-something person, there isn't anything other than a 2,400 square foot townhome. Yeah.
That they can't afford, and don't want.
I mean, as a builder, the amount of site work and prep work we're putting into this, it's economic, I don't know how they can do it.
How they can do what?
I mean, D.R. Horton's selling their townhomes for $350,000 that are 1,350 square feet with carpet in the living room.
And they're selling.
And they're selling, I mean, it's unfortunate, but I know how much.
You want more of that,
work
huh?
What?
You want more of that, huh?
No, but I'm
Okay.
saying there's just so much work and site work and expense that
I'm
they.
just trying to find a way to get more affordable housing for a demographic that's not being addressed, that's all.
Yeah,
That's quality.
Yes, that's quality.
the 3 pieces of the pyramid, guys. Quick, quality, cheap, please, find a way.
That's it. It doesn't
Well,
exist.
the only thing, that's why, I guess me and Ron are on the same page about that, because there's such limited area outside of the individual lots that is going to be controlled after those lots are all sold, so that can potentially have, if there was more area outside of that, that was part of the original site plan, that we knew this is exactly how it was going to be, how much vegetation, how much tree coverage was gonna continue to exist, how you were gonna protect that highway corridor, shield it, but basically when you have lots this size that, once they get to that size, and if they have a house on them less than a certain size, they can basically do whatever they want to that individual lot. And then we've lost all of our existing control, all of our coverage there, all of our.
Yeah.
So we have to be concerned about the individual houses and what they look like at that scale. One good thing, this is just a suggestion, obviously, these lots are decent sized, a 2,400 square foot house shown on these plans will give a pretty good idea too of how much each of those lots are left, with an example driveway. I know we've seen other development proposals that show something of the like. I think a 2,400 new two-story house on these lots, you get actually a lot of yard space left. And then we've talked about how you're going to control things in the neighborhood in terms of vegetation on the individual lot.
Impervious surface.
Impervious surfaces, something we're always
After
talking
the
about
fact, it was
now.
never considered in the, in calculations.
You can pull back there.
And stormwater is a big thing here, so.
Are there any?
I think there's another word I mentioned a couple of times during that meeting, was stormwater.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any comments from the audience?
Yeah,
Name and address, please.
John Hill, 316 Bay Street. Two houses over from that little road they got coming out of Bay Street.
To
Couple
the left or
comments.
right?
What's that?
Left or right?
Well, on that map, it's to the right,
Got it.
toward the
Thank you.
highway.
Towards the
East or west?
East.
That's
Well,
the
yeah, right,
right.
left, upside
Yeah, I
down.
prefer right or left.
So, a couple comments. First of all, this is a preliminary site plan offering, correct?
It's just concepts,
Right,
yeah.
right. So when they did that, they said that they're trying to do this not as a PUD, but as something that meets with current zoning guidelines, correct? However, this preliminary site plan not only reduces the lot size, but also asks for variances or special exceptions for front yard, side yard, and rear yard setbacks. So at the least, that's disingenuous. So at that site plan right there, it would be a PUD if it all allowable under your guidelines. Okay, so that's something that I wouldn't have come to you and said, hey, I'm gonna build a nuclear reactor on my house, but it's gonna be in a residential structure. Okay, no, you can't say one thing and do another. Second of all, the lot that you see the road on right there, they've owned that lot along with the other 4 or 5 lots there in the back for a while now. They've used that for maintenance, cutting and things, and part of the stormwater management issue in that area is that there's a ditch that runs through there, right? They've destroyed the ditch by running tractors through it, which is why a lot of the area around Tony Weeks floods. So they've not been good stewards of the property they've owned for quite some time. Regardless of the trees, it's not been well maintained. There's a lot of wetlands there. I was there and watched the surveyors come out and mark them. The flags are still there if they haven't been removed by someone. I don't know why they would have. The traffic on Bay Street is horrendous. I live right there. I have to wait to back out of my driveway every morning. Cars come from town and they fly to hit that green light. So I can't imagine the impact of additional, let's just say every home has 2 cars, 54 cars, maybe a few extra because you got some, side service parking. 60 cars coming out of that development within 500 yards of the red light there at the highway is absolutely ridiculous. So in addition to rejecting this offering, I would also say that a traffic study would be required with any initial offer. Someone may comment about, no, we don't want to put them out on the park, but if you put them out to the park side, I understand that it's not as accessible. You don't have a red light. It's not going to be as favorable. But it's not a residential area, so I would consider that as well. If it was a PUD, then you could include requirements for improvements of public utilities as well, including the road. So think about that. 27 homes does not meet zoning code. They sat there and told you it did. It doesn't. If they want to come back with an initial offering saying that we could fit 20 homes and have 8,000 square foot lots and not need a reduction in setbacks, I'd want to hear that too. But as far as that goes, I just see a negative impact. I understand infill development, that's what you want to do. You don't want to sprawl, right? Nobody wants to do that. We don't want to see developments from here to Whaleyville, from here to Ocean Ponds. But we also have to preserve green space in town. That's another one of your mandates. We have green space. I know they offered it to the town for what, $500,000 a few years ago? I don't know what happened to that? That was, I mean, I bought for $500,000 and put it in a trust. I mean, that's just, but I want people to be able to do with their own property what they can do. I'm a firm proponent of nobody tells me what to do on my property as long as it's within the law, okay? But don't come here and say you're gonna do this, but right on the plan you have there, say, nope, the lots are smaller than what's allowed, all the setbacks are smaller than what's allowed, and we want to have your blessing to proceed. It's just not within anything I would ever approve. And the traffic, you say it's good to come out on Bay Street, go sit down there in the morning, go sit down there at night, anytime and see what it's like. I can't imagine the impact of that many residential homes. I can't imagine the impact of stormwater. When it rains right now, that new underpass floods because it has nowhere to go. We haven't cleared the silt out of the ditches on the other side of the highway. We've had recommendations for stormwater management for years and they've not been completed. If it wasn't for the state doing the improvements we've done, we'd still be underwater back there. So consider all that before you make a decision. I would ask them to come back if they want to do an initial proposal for conceptual acceptance, then they need to be completely transparent with what they want. They need to be truthful with the lot size that they're requiring or what they're requesting. And if they need a PUD, that's what they need to go for. And I realize there's a lot more negotiations, a lot more work that has to go into one of those, and it becomes probably cost prohibitive for what they want to do with the amount of property they have, but that's just the way it is. I have to obey the law. I live right there. I want them to do the same. And I expect that you have our best interests at heart as residents of town.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments in the audience? Anything else you need? Well, is there anything else? Good. I mean, I think you've heard pros, cons, things to think about, things we're looking for. All right. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
I will.
Yeah.
Item number 6, concept plan 21 Jefferson Street. Can you guys come forward? I know Eric's going to be going down there to talk. This is once again just a concept plan, everybody.
If they ask me to,
I wouldn't think so.
If I asked you to.
if the chair asks me to.
Keep fishing the river.
Watching.
Go ahead.
Mayor Pfeffer, 111 West Street.
Megan Hines, 328 Butterfield Forest.
I know, Matt, you've had some conversations about this, and in general, let me say, last week we went in front of the historic district for the first time to have a similar conversation with them that we've been having with the planning commission in regard to, this is really just site plan concept, and a little bit more difficult with them because obviously they're more concerned with elevations of the building, but the site and contextually what we're proposing to do here, has an impact on the historic district and kind of the functional operation of the historic district on a site plan level. So we had generally a positive reaction from the historic district and a recommendation, I guess you would call it. And then Rick has obviously facilitated that and facilitated another meeting in front of the planning commission tonight. I think the conversation will be pretty similar to about, I think it was a month or so ago that we sat in front of you. But almost, a more for the record conversation. considering that, Rick has been involved and is kind of guiding us towards a direction where we can have a more real conversation with the BZA about the best approach, whether it's a variance or some ordinance to give us not necessarily definitive, but close to definitive direction on what footprint of a building we can build on this lot.
Can you remind me, what parts of this design are you going to the BZA for an exception?
The setbacks
On both sides?
Both sides.
And one towards just the sides there?
There's a 0-foot setback.
Okay.
So all in danger.
And what's the setback supposed to be on Gay and Jefferson?
And on both,
And what are you guys requesting? BZA?
it is about 0.9 feet, I believe, on Jefferson, and 3 point something on First Street, which are both aligned with the furthest projecting corners of Jeff's adjacent building.
So essentially, it's matching the neighborhood.
Yeah, and it's the same, everything is the same exact, with the exception of, Rick has provided some comments and suggestions as part of this packet, which are from him, not from us. Some of which, we agree with, but they're kind of talking points. So nothing in terms of the site plan you're seeing is different than what you saw last time we were here, other than the fact that we had sat in front of the historic district and from a site planning standpoint, and having some continuation of a streetscape along both streets and kind of creating this, I'm calling it a terminus to the historic district. There's something that I think they all support, obviously.
They were generally happy.
I want to see what the building will look like, but yeah, generally speaking, yeah.
Rick, could you have any comments you want to walk us through this?
Certainly, I appreciate the opportunity. So, right when I came on with the town, 21 Jefferson Street was one of the projects that came up certainly of interest. And from everybody I've encountered or spoken to, there seems to be a great deal of interest and excitement about putting some economic activity on this site. A year ago, it was in front of April, it was in front of the Board of Appeals. The recommendation at that time was, do you want us to vote on this tonight? Do you really want to consider that question? With a recommendation to go back to both the Historic Commission and to the Planning Commission, I think for guidance, insight, etc. I cannot get inside the head of that commission, but when I read those minutes and reviewed that meeting and spoke to the chair, it was kind of a gentle nudge to avoid being turned down. Trying to collect a consensus about how to move forward and meet or fulfill that interest in economic activity on this site. One of the general consensus that was able to collect is that there's something along those lines would look good, but it would take some compromises to get to a yes. As Eric has pointed out, the 3 compromises that are noted on there do spring forward from me. Spent time, you can see in your package, looking at the streets, speaking to property owners around there that met and ran into. Certainly see many issues for the development of that area. Safety, for example, particularly along Gay Street, delivery along Gay Street. So the 3 compromises on there, and these are the ones presented to the Historic Commission, would be to have the sidewalks along Jefferson Street be compliant with subpart A of county code, or city code, town code, 28-40, which would look for a 5-foot sidewalk. Actually, would look for a 5-foot sidewalk on the frontage of both Gay and Jefferson. But looking at the compromise would be to put that on Jefferson, and along Gay Street to have the building be consistent with the others, which are 3.5 feet off the edge of the pavement. It leaves other issues to be addressed, parking, which was touched on, deliveries, etc., for the development. But the purpose is not to ask for the commission tonight to vote or to decide this isn't final by any means. We're trying to come to a consensus on what this commission would support. They have a consensus from the historic commission of what they would support, and that does include these three compromises. But that would then be able to go to Board of Appeals, and if we can get consensus there, what the administrative process is in order to bring that about, whether that would be a variance or an ordinance. I cannot tell you at this point in time, because it's been a question I've been asking since it was first asked to take a look at this. Nothing about what would be done would be compliant with code in either case. I was trying to come up with one that would meet whatever the intent or desire of the town, what this will look like going into the future. I can tell you more about what I found from visiting the site, taking measurements, et cetera, but I'll prefer to only address those things which are of interest to you.
Thank you, Rick. Megan, do you know what your game plan with this building is yet? Do you know what you want to do with it?
Yes, ultimately, it would be a commercial space. We, right now, and this could change, but right now we are thinking of it as a home for the Buzz Meadery as well as Gin and Juice. Gin and Juice, right now we operate in a space on Fifth Street. It's very small and there's no seating, so we'd like to have some seating. The Buzz Meadery is almost non-existent. We're kind of limping along, and we'd like to keep it alive and well here. So kind of merging our two businesses under one roof, somewhere around the hours of like opening at 8 a.m., such as we do at Gin and Juice for breakfast and lunch, and then probably early evening hours. I don't have a set hour, but like not a late night place is what we're thinking.
Are you looking at doing production there?
If it were allowed, yes. Our current production, we're usually using up to 4 tanks at the very most, and there's no smells. There's very little waste. We basically take honey and add it to water. So as far as the production side, that's very simplified. It's almost easier than the juicing process.
Because your product, it falls under like a slightly different category, right? Than like a typical alcoholic production.
It's considered a manufacturing process. We're both a winery and a brewery under the state of Maryland and federal.
It's a pretty quiet process, sounds
It
like.
is, there's no noise.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just
mean,
don't-
we're
I don't know.
mixing something. No,
Okay.
I don't think residents would ever notice it.
Even know what's going on.
Yeah.
What is the rough footprint of this building?
The actual meadery juice would be about 1,000 square feet, I show.
Upstairs, I have a general idea, but I want to make sure, what is the game plan there, or thought process? I get it, things change every 2 weeks.
An adjunct seating area, with extra overflow seating. Possibly, people can have a small party up there. As far as like a party of 8 to 12 people sitting there, I'm not talking like a party, that's not what I mean. Yeah, just seating area.
Would you,
There may be limited food. We wouldn't have very much space for a full kitchen, nothing like a fryer. Small plates, if anything.
would you be constructing the building to potentially go up, down the road?
That is still the intention, yeah.
Was that like pipe dream eventually, there's some housing up
It's
there or
not my
something?
dream, no.
No? Okay.
I don't want to,
Just
but
asking.
people have encouraged us. We want to keep our options open,
Okay.
but that would not be in our immediate plan.
But it would be constructed to be possible, is the idea.
It'd be crazy not to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we, from a design standpoint, we've tossed around the idea, it's easy enough to ghost in what that would be,
Okay.
without investing too much.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Design
it's
capital in that.
Cool.
Are the compromises something you guys can work with?
The only thing that I disagree with from a, standpoint of for the sake of the town and for the property is any pedestrian kind of access between our building and Jeff's building, if that is going to be our only parking area. It's just, based on my design education, the worst condition to create an alleyway, essentially, where vehicles are also intended to be in a relatively tight space. And it would discourage pedestrians going around the tip of the property, which is something that, you know, we want to encourage. You know, otherwise your kind of terminus of your path is before that, but the intent is to obviously landscape and for, you know, the design that exists in the 4 feet above grade to, you know, it's going to be designed to the tip of that lot, obviously with consideration for traffic around that corner and everything, but to kind of terminate that pedestrian path. You know, people are naturally going to go through that alleyway if we don't kind of try to discourage it. So we're going to go through it anyways, no matter what. But it's a bad condition in my mind. It's also probably where we're going to have trash and mechanical equipment and things like that.
Where did the 3 foot come from?
That's a great
Yeah, right.
definition.
Well,
Okay.
so they asked for parking back there, for 2 parking spaces, each one would be 9 foot by 20. You have approximately 9 foot by 20 plus a 9 foot by 45 because of the shape back there, which would get into delivery issues. Having that be 10 foot wide, looked quite narrow, so moving it to 12 did provide that passageway through there. That's the thinking. You know, but these were compromises that I put forward from talking to many people. These are not written in stone. Trying to get to a consensus to get to a yes.
So what you're saying is that you prefer to prevent pedestrian access to that section outlet. But is 12 feet okay with you?
It is actually shown at 12 feet, which I meant to bring to you last.
So 12 feet is okay?
Yeah, and it actually may have to be more than that. For example, Jeff has a condenser unit that may even be over the property line.
So your only requested compromise on the compromise is that you don't want pedestrian traffic.
Correct.
You know, that, to me, that would be perfectly satisfactory and consistent with what's been done with Historic Commission and trying to move forward. Because really all we're trying to get to is the footprint that they can then, they know they can design on, that becomes stable after meeting with BZA so they can move forward.
And that, you know, is something that can be discussed further because that direction shifting the building is not what's really limiting us. I mean, obviously, the more we have to shift the building towards the point, it gets narrower and narrower in that direction. But it's obviously the Gay Street and Jefferson.
So
Street
the setback compromises on the 2 streets are okay, are workable for you?
That is what we're proposing.
5 feet sidewalk, 7 feet to the building off
Well, the
Jefferson.
5-foot sidewalk, I'm not sure exactly how, we haven't talked about how that would affect, like, does that change our property line? Because our property line on that side is.
No, it doesn't change the property line. You're required to
Yeah.
build it, maintain it, pay for it. The city says it has, or town says it has to be 5 feet wide.
Is that mandatory or can that be varied?
Subpart A 28-40, it would take either Board of Appeals or Mayor and Council, I don't know which in this case.
Because when I went there today and stepped it off, and all the sidewalks that exist on Jefferson by you and on the neighbors across the street on both sides are 4-foot sidewalks. And to me, I mean, I think I would be agreeable to generosity there, the 4-foot sidewalks, to give them an extra foot because it's so tight. But that's just my thinking.
So
Because the existing sidewalks, to me, are adequate, and I walk those all the time with my grandkids.
The intent of code says existing, constructed, new constructed, reconstructed, they will become 5 foot.
But you can get a variance if we can compromise on that. You can ask for it. I mean, it can be denied, but you could ask for it.
Just telling you what's in code.
I understand, and I read your comments, I appreciate it. It's very helpful. And I'm just expressing my opinion that if that 1 foot is helpful, I know I'd be.
Well, as currently shown in the site plan, it doesn't affect the lower level footprint of our building, because that is setback approximately 5 feet from the current back of the sidewalk.
What I wrote in the write-up is to use face of curve, which gives them another 6 inches.
Right.
So we would currently be set back about, at the lower level again, about 9 feet then from that, because the upper level over, or we have an awning overhanging that, or we have an actual roof overhanging that, so that when you enter the building from that side, you are under roof. But the face of the conditioned building will be set back from that.
So that'll work for you.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
absolutely work with that. yeah.
That's to each of you, maybe consider the following. If the sidewalk is 5 and the building is further back, 7 or 9, as Eric is saying, for the first floor, the second story would come down with a post or a pillar, correct? And that would be out in that sidewalk area. One thing that we would need to watch out for collectively, everybody involved, would be that we do not violate ADA. So you would need to provide a minimum of 3.5 feet of clearance path on one side or the other of that post. But as a compromise, put that forward to be considered.
Yeah, I'm not sure without getting into the weeds, but it was always intended for the other side entrance to be the ADA accessible entrance.
And there, the town would take a position of having right now, as it's shown, there's no sidewalk on the Gay Street side. There is an entrance, but safe access, pedestrian access, if that's going to be considered a frontage to the building, then the same 5-foot sidewalk should apply.
How does that factor in with the clipping of Jeff Ochter's building of the 5-foot?
Jeffrey Oxford's building was built in 1930. The zoning code and changes came in the late 70s and 90s. If you make a modification in a historic district and there is a pinch point that is previously existing, federal law will allow it to remain.
I'm open to whatever. Obviously, as architects, we always design in the spirit of ADA, and because it is not ADA itself is not a code, but the enforcement of it is jurisdiction. So we're open to whatever. We'll consider that side an accessible entrance, but.
Just for talking points, how would, I'm trying to envision it. So let's say you have a door on Jefferson Street and a door on Gay Street that are both pedestrian doors. How does that work without I'm trying to imagine a building that doesn't have a sidewalk, it just has a door. Is it just right off the, I'm not trying to be mean, is it right off the road? I'm struggling trying to visualize this.
Yeah, I mean, that edge of pavement condition on that side of the property, you have to, there's some pictures in the packet too that reflect what it is currently. We would do some, hardscaping, obviously immediately outside that entrance. That would not just be.
But I mean, would you, because the setback on Gay Street is 3.5 feet, right? 3.6 feet. So, if you were walking into, once again, I'm just trying to visualize this.
Yeah.
If you're going into the building from Gay Street, are you stepping from the road to just a landing?
Just a grade walkway rather than step up in the room.
Yeah, effectively. Yeah. We haven't gotten into the weeds from that perspective too. And to clarify, and you may have measured this on site, in which case our survey information would be wrong, but our property line is approximately 4 feet from the actual edge of pavement on Gay Street.
I was out there with a 100-foot tape measure by myself,
Yeah.
so I had
So
It was on the dumb end.
So Gay Street, so you can see I have it marked on the site plan, the edge of pavement versus where our property line is, and where the property line to the next red dash line is where that 3-foot, approximately 3.5-foot setback is. So we'd actually be closer to 7, 8 feet from the edge of pavement there.
I mean, we're not arguing, I'm talking about figures out today. It seems odd, and maybe I'm wrong, I have to walk around and look at other places. Just in my initial thought, it seems odd, but I haven't put anything in front of me.
From a to bring it back to, some of the things that we're considering in that regard, obviously, it's on a unique lot that runs Jefferson and Day Street, so having an entrance on both sides seemed to make the most sense. Obviously, the property across the street on Day Street, or both properties, both with Pop's Kitchen and Mr. Sullivan's eventual building, if that gets developed, will have commercial first floor. So it seems to also make sense as a more commercial corridor. And obviously, Pop's Kitchen is a restaurant, and this would be somewhat of a restaurant to face an entrance towards that building as well. And potentially that could be an entrance that is, after 5 o'clock entrance for, be courteous to the residential across on the Jefferson Street side.
So just live with me in a world where money doesn't matter, magical world where you can pay your bills with happiness. Could you, is there space in your current design if you had to? Let's say putting that door there was just a need, and let's say the zoning board or us or this door said, if you want that door and a pedestrian door, we want a 3.5 or a 4 foot sidewalk. Once again, hypothetical, is that even possible with your current design? Or would that change a whole lot of factors?
Yeah, that is possible. I'm not sure.
Well, where do we go to?
Yeah.
I know, and
Sidewalks to nowhere.
welcome to my land of sidewalks to nowhere. And I understand what you're saying. I'm still having trouble visualizing it. I'm just bringing this out. And that's a great question you brought up.
Again, I forget on the original survey if it identifies that area between our property line and the edge of pavement as where sidewalk would potentially be if there was sidewalk there.
Yeah, because what you're saying is it would lead into Jeff's place, which is an elevated area down there. I understand.
Well, that if it was there, then I think it would slide by that. I haven't gone out there and measured that exactly. I don't know if you have.
On the backside?
Yeah, because, right, you said Jeff has that elevated concrete area back there.
As you get up to the, well, say next to the Globe, the small building next to it, you would not be able to run a sidewalk there.
Right.
I mean, I assume that you could do some type of ADA entrance into it, like a sloped paved entrance into the building for the door or something.
Yeah. And again, it makes sense from that being a more, business corridor on that side, again, just the 2 buildings across the street, for that to be the area where we've always considered, okay, that's where you have your I'm blanking on it, where you put your bikes, where you put your baby stroller, because that will also be under an overhang of the roof deck will overhang that area by approximately 4 or 5 feet, so it'll be, protected from the rain and stuff.
But Megan, you as a business owner would like to have the door on both sides.
Yes. And it might help with like egress, like fire, I don't know. It would,
Right.
I feel like movement,
Yeah.
it would help movement a little.
Yeah.
But it limits your interior, already limited interior space.
That's true.
So I don't believe that's what we heard. Or didn't you say that you would have the space to put that surface there along the building without changing current design?
Yeah, Ron's talking about like the interior area and the circulation required around.
Just like you could.
Just, it's not a wall you can put something on anymore. It's a
Yeah.
door that needs entrance.
Yeah, yeah.
And needs a certain amount of square footage taken up an already minimal.
Yeah. Yeah, but, again, without having dove super deep back into the interior layout of the building, it's not the intent for it to be a restaurant and serve as many guests as possible, not to speak for.
I'm not suggesting one thing or another.
Yeah. So it's actually nice to kind of limit it, by that.
That was where we had it like, carried on.
Yeah.
What are the 4 axes?
What is that?
The second to last page. Ooh, back one. Yeah.
Oh,
that was part of way back when we had
Previous
shaded
part.
those
Okay.
as an example.
Got
I
it.
don't know if you recall. just
Yep,
like
yep,
a
yep, I do
parallel
know.
park.
Okay.
Oh,
I would like to hear the other comments that you said you had. Did you say you had some other comments that you could give us?
They would go more to what happens ultimately with Gay Street. You'll see in your package that there's, happens to be some photographs taken while I was out there. One of them was on the top, one on the top. You can see you have a delivery truck on one side of Gay Street. On the opposite side, you have an SUV that's parked on the sidewalk, creating, a course that any vehicle has to go through in situations that are not desirable for bicycles or pedestrians, or potentially emergency vehicles. In the picture at the bottom, you see the delivery truck in front of Pops. Now, at this point in time, I did have some help with the 100-foot yard tape. The gentleman who was driving was, I told him what I was doing. He was trying to hold it on the bumper and let me have the smart end of the collar. You do have 12 feet of clearance there with that delivery truck, which would be adequate for emergency vehicles to get through there. But as the chief has said, enforcing this type of conduct or operation on the street can be quite difficult. So it would not be germane to tonight's discussion necessarily, but certainly taking a long-term look, dealing with Gay Street, these circumstances, such things as deliveries. Keep in mind, delivery is one of the things that's an exception here. Because this property fronts an R2 neighborhood, the requirements for deliveries are to have a delivery site that is 45 feet deep, I believe it's 12 feet wide, and screened 25 feet away from the street. Never going to happen. And again, the idea here is that I think I haven't really met anybody to express an opposition to the type of economic activity here that the Hines are presenting. We're just trying to get to a building footprint that is stable so they can move forward with certainty. So there's more. I can tell you about the hotel side. I can tell you about their parking lot, and et cetera, from looking at this. That's not what Hines are here for tonight.
Doesn't Pop's Kitchen have parking behind it? Am I remembering
Yeah,
correctly?
Pop's Kitchen has parking behind it.
So would there be any problem with requiring delivery trucks to go to the back and deliver?
I believe that parking behind Pop's is private.
Good luck turning that truck
Yeah,
around that
yeah,
parking
that
lot.
truck right there.
I'm just throwing it out.
Generally. Sounds good to me.
Generally, it's okay with me.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything crazy coming from us.
Did you all clear?
I'm excited to see
what it
something
is
on
that
that
you
corner.
believe?
Really, I think they're looking for a footprint.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear there's a room for compromise. Thank you for getting that done, Bert. Good to hear what the other commissions are thinking. We can all try to work together.
Eric, are you looking for anything from us beyond this?
The way the Historic District Commission left it last week was rather than a formal vote, it was a consensus.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything specific, like any specific red boxes of information you're looking for approval from us, or just?
I mean, I don't know. Again, the consensus was received. I don't know. It would be facilitated with a letter of consensus from you as in a simple format. I'm not sure yet, because I have not had those conversations with the DCA directly in terms of what facilitate that conversation.
Depending on what came out tonight, if there was consensus by the planning commission, the Maine Historic and Planning Commission had the same idea of this is something we could accept, something we can see becoming the reality on this site. Then it's time, they submitted an application for the Board of Appeals in April to try and facilitate success with that is why we're here tonight. So would staff be able to, I guess, maybe draft that letter that the two chairmen could sign? That way Joe gets something that says, hey, we've seen it, we can live with it, figure out how to do it.
Real quick,
Throw it in your hands.
is there any comments from the audience?
Everything he makes delicious.
There's that. Yeah, I mean, I think in general, this seems fine with me. Don't have any objections. Steve?
No objections.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Zach, guys.
Thanks for coordinating all that, Rick.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Didn't amount to much in the end.
This is the most in-depth package I've ever gotten.
Yeah, good job.
Is there any general comments from the public?
I'll have one more thing, I forgot to mention, Bay Street is the primary route of egress for Berlin Fire Company for all points east. It's for the ambulance, it's where the fire trucks go. Believe me, I hear them all the time, they got that low frequency sound around them, you're like, so that needs to be considered too. Not that I think that, I don't know if we'll see those folks again with anything similar to the previous.
And then just so you know, when we get to a site plan approval, we get comments from the police and fire department about all developments. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but they will always chime in as
My
well.
voice heard as early as possible.
Yeah,
Because a lot of people don't show up to make the comments, like you said, keyboard warriors don't. Make Facebook
Thanks
comments,
for
this is
being
gonna
here.
be horrible, but, yeah, I need to become more involved with our town government, so we don't lose out on the $500,000 addition to the park next time.
Is there any comments from the staff? All right, I have a couple of things I've been asked to bring up, or in general. At the last council meeting, Steve Green had brought up and had talked to me about, they're throwing around, they want our comments about a moratorium on commercial and large residential developments for a undetermined period of time until they get a new planning director in place who can be caught up and take on stuff. I think Rick's doing a great job. I don't know if they want him so overwhelmed as he's part-time. An accurate, Rick?
I don't want to be so overwhelmed.
He's retired, he's bailing us out of a jam. And to put the stress of, let's just say, a microtel, a Wawa, and a residential development might not, he might not be able to get to it, and it might be unfair. So Steve Green had mentioned it, and I told him I'd bring it up today about where that stands and our thoughts on that. And I think there's a lot stems from the Wawa meeting was kind of a little contentious, and we didn't have, they had
Legal
arguments.
representation.
They had arguments against us, and so throwing it out to you guys, your thought process about it, or your thoughts about it, or anyone here to speak up.
Yeah, I mean, just approvals, we would be still open to reviewing concepts.
Yeah, I think that would be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously one thing that Rick has been great about is providing these packets and these huge projects that we just need that, you know. And even with the project tonight, you know, it's not, I don't know if I'm the only one, obviously, as well, Steve as well, but wasn't present for their previous presentations, you know. You were not, yeah. Maybe we need some background on, and it seems like there'll be other projects like that that have come before us, and we're not getting background on it, and it's really not, we can't really do our job on it. And that's where I know Rick's investing a ton of time in this, which is.
So can I ask a question? Let's just pretend in another world Rick doesn't exist.
Okay.
We have no happiness. How would a project move forward? Would it be you who is doing all the research and trying to get things pushed through and approved to us?
Theoretically, realistically, I could no more do that than I could go run the power plant,
Right.
wastewater plant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't possess the expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And being town administrator is kind of a full-time job all on its
Yeah.
So without Rick having agreed to do this,
We'd be here tonight.
I probably wouldn't be here.
I mean, because I bring that up, so
Yeah.
once again, Rick's job is a stopgap. Rick is not here to fully keep Berlin moving at 100% with our 10-year plan of where we want developed and everything. And he is meant just to keep the wheels moving, correct? That's like the game plan?
I think that was exactly how I initially described it, was to make sure that property owners, developers, builders, projects didn't just kind of stall.
Screeching halt.
That they kept moving as best they could.
And I mean, I'll tell you, like, I absolutely hate the idea of moratorium, but I think that's where we're at. Like, I despise it. I think it sucks. I hate looking at someone and going, I'm sorry guys, we're in a tough spot, we're not developing. but I don't know how we protect ourselves 10 years down the line from, what's it, CVS, you know, like, the outside. From something like that, where we go, oh, I didn't know we could stop. Right, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Triangle windows.
Yeah, so I just
Or
feel.
diamond-shaped windows.
Totally my metro.
Yeah, I mean, but my concern is that there are elements like that where although, you know, we're adequate at this, we're not paid. We're not paid professionals, you know?
We need full staff.
And so.
And the applicant needs that as much, is not more than we need.
Correct.
And it's
Because
just not fair to an
It's-
applicant.
Correct, it's not
It's not
fair
fair
to
to
those
anybody
trying
involved.
to move, yeah, through the process.
And I think we would be doing ourselves and them a disservice by not putting in I think somebody called it the other night, something other than a moratorium.
There's no-
The pause.
The pause.
The pause.
Call it.
No, it's
That
essentially,
every, you
yeah.
know, people who want to build houses on established lots, you know, there's nothing stopping that. They're just going to slow down subdivision or commercial project. I think it's just, I think it's only fair to everybody involved that we be fully staffed.
I mean, we struggled with the West Street issue, you know, I mean, can they do it? What can they do? And to be fair, they could come here and blow smoke up our ass and we wouldn't know better. You know, we would think we know, but
We all need protection, and we all need to be fair to everybody. And also, I watched the discussion the other night, and I think they were talking about 3 months, starting now.
The anticipation is that if we were to offer the job to somebody tomorrow at that level, they would be providing their current employer a minimum of 30 days. So that's already pushing us into.
Mid-August,
Yeah,
September.
that's the hope,
And
mid-August.
they're talking about 3 months, and then it's like, oh, I show up, and the first day of my job, I gotta do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think what we need to do is call it a 6 month. But once we feel like the wheels are on the bus, back off. Back off
Right, a
and forward.
moratorium can always be lifted
Yes.
earlier than the time.
We would be better off saying more than we think we need than less than we know we need. And 3 months is just way too short to get somebody in the position and ready to go. It's just not fair to them, it's not fair to again, it's even be more unfair to everybody than what we have now.
so you're proposing 6 months.
I'm proposing 6 months, but as soon as the staff feels, okay, we're up and running now, we can go ahead and do this. And I think it's reasonable that it would be less than six months. It's easier to back off than it is to add on.
Well, hash that out for me then, as far as at what point are we open for new concept review plans?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think we look at, yeah, we do just what
So
we did.
then where would you stop? Site plan approval?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I think we have
That's-
discussions, if anyone wants to come in and talk about anything, we're all about it.
That,
But when it
I mean,
comes time to
I hate the
decision-
idea of it too, but I don't want to see anybody who's been waiting for however long. Oh, no, I can't come present my idea.
Who's in the pipeline? Who now?
There's might be people you don't know that are, like, we might call tomorrow and say, hey, I want to get on the schedule.
Well, then they're not in the pipeline.
That's not
If
fair.
they're not on the schedule, they're not in the
For
pipeline.
even a concept review plan?
No, I think we do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
There's nothing to stop people from continuing to submit to the planning
Yeah.
office. It's just that it won't go for final approvals.
It won't go for site plan approval.
Right.
I think
So we'll take it pretty far.
We'll take it as far as we
Stop
can possibly take
Before
it.
site plan approval.
I think we take, I hate it too, but I think we're in a position now where it's a must.
I think conversations like tonight were very useful for everybody, but it's not, we don't know when they may come back with a site plan review. It may not.
6
you know.
months or a year.
Right.
I mean,
Dave
they've
has
had it
always
for
found the
15 years
same
already.
concepts came across his desk all the time
Yeah,
and never
it never happened.
panned out. Right.
So Ron has 6 months. My proposal thought process was September 15th, and then it's a rolling 30-month extension, 30 days before the expiration. So what that would be is at August 15th, there would be a conversation that, because it would be all city council that makes these recommendations.
Right.
Was if at August 15th, they look at it and go, we are not ready in 30 days, it adds 30 and pushes to October 15th. So basically, there's always a 60-day gap of when we know we're potentially be up and running. And I understand we're going 6 months. I'm just fearful of putting that large of a pause on development coming through our pipeline.
And I'd say that it'd be less, I'd say we're better off with 6 and be ready to back off rather than adding. That's more difficult to do. And in all due respect, when I watched the mayor and council discuss this the other night, it appeared to me that they didn't really understand how long it takes to do something. I think that rather than them deciding on the timeframe after the person is in position, that person's more able to determine when he's ready to go than mayor and council saying, hey, we want you to go. They might not be ready.
Which I think the 30-day does controls that better. And
Well,
I think the end result will be almost the same time.
Yeah,
in all
right.
honesty.
I just think it's safer to say 6.
So,
And that gets people, okay, it might take that long.
Is there any knowledge about time frame of the hiring or anything of that nature?
We are actively interviewing.
Okay. So,
they'll probably accept it when they show up. Do you guys have anyone else comments? Thoughts?
I was just gonna say, I think a lot of times we get into a realm, and again, Rick has done us a big favor with kind of outlining the portions of the code where we are getting asked questions about those things that we can't possibly have some of us more than others, for you to go getting this, if we can be clear with concept review applicants that, hey, we are commenting on these things that the town of Berlin code, lists as the responsibilities of the planning commission. And, you have to know that we are not commenting on these other things, which are, the more executive side and straight up, just doesn't think of, obviously, things like with the PUD, lot size tonight, we have knowledge of that, we can say, obviously, less than 8,000 square feet.
Chris, what do you think?
Am I allowed to just give my personal opinion?
Please.
Yeah, please, I prefer that.
You're sitting back
That's why we're
there.
here. That's why we're here.
Well, as a personal opinion, you said you don't like the word moratorium. Right now, Berlin is hot, and that's not going to last forever. We are the prettiest girl at the dance, so this is the time to be asking for things and moving forward. You don't know what the economy is going to do. By putting a moratorium on, you might be shooting your, no, I'm not going to say my opinion is you're shooting yourself in the foot. Being able to go through the process on any site plan from concept to final, really, what you're talking about is having the resources, the time and opportunity to do it thoroughly and do it correctly. Right now, the town only asks for 2 weeks prior to, for a submittal 2 weeks prior to the meeting. Would like to consider moving that back to 30 days so that there's more of an opportunity to complete the packages that are in front of you. They should actually expand and get larger than what's currently been coming out. In the short time I've been doing them, I'm happier with what I'm doing today than what I was doing on day one when I started for you all. This is on public record, so I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. You've already brought up Wawa this evening. I know that, well, my impression is that from a building point of view, what the building would look like, what the parking lot would look like, you all did a good job of getting to a satisfactory answer that you desired. But you did not get to the gateway that you wanted for the town of Berlin, which is extremely important and will continue on for a long time. When Wawa presented in here on February 14th of this year, they made the statement that 7-Eleven had an approved site plan. You all did not have the support or backing to be able to tell you that no, 7-Eleven did not have an approved site plan. The last time you all voted on it, you gave them a conditional site plan. Newt Chandler very clearly laid out what those conditions were, addressing concerns of multiple members of the commission. 7-Eleven never returned with that, to the best of my knowledge. But even if their site plan had been signed on that date, I believe it was 2018 or 2019, they did not proceed immediately with construction, so therefore, per town code, their site plan was no longer valid. They had a second option, which was to issue a performance bond to the mayor and council with a specific schedule of when they would proceed, and without that performance bond, their site plan was null and void. Taking a look at the highway corridor, the trees issue like you talked about for Tripoli, and I applaud you all for moving forward with that discussion this evening. Taking a look at, well, without affecting Wawa, is there enough space to put those trees in? I didn't have a PDF copy of the site plan, so I contacted Bowler yesterday. Today, a file transmission came in. Only the transmittal was there, but in the notes from the engineer, it says, well, we're really not done with the site plan. We're working on it, and we're going to be coming back to you all. I want to get you a gateway for Wawa and Hebron Bank. I want you to continue to move forward, but maybe at a pace that I'm not stepping on my shoelaces, and you all haven't been asked to consider something that you haven't been provided the appropriate support for.
Thank you.
And I would just like to add, and I said this at the council meeting, and I'm going to say it again, my support of a pause or a moratorium is absolutely in no way a reflection.
Yeah, definitely.
Rick has saved my hide over the last couple of months. Be absolutely clear about that. But to his point about submittal deadlines, we don't have firm deadlines, and we're getting them. Right now, we have a Board of Appeals meeting scheduled for a couple of weeks. And we're still sort of, there's nothing that says we don't have to keep getting submittals in, except that we have to run the ad next week. So that's the only deadline that we really have right now that we can apply to it. 2 weeks before a meeting or before that ad has to, that's too fast for anybody.
Wait.
It doesn't give staff the appropriate time to review, to discuss with departments and other agencies, and those deadlines have got to be pushed back.
And those deadlines were written before we were,
They were,
at the dance, right?
And they were written,
They said-